All right, can't find my selfie stick. All right, so we're doing it the old-fashioned way. I can't find my selfie stick. A little bit discombobulated here. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, 2023, from myself here at Moto Valley Enduro. Here's the bikes, looking okay. About to do some work. Got some big news coming for 2023. Yeah, the garage is an absolute mess. It usually is. Life's too busy, and when I have time where I should probably be cleaning the garage, I usually spend it riding. Today I think what we're gonna do is talk about suspension a little bit. I gotta take some confirmatory measurements, and then I'm gonna be stripping the 300 down, getting it ready for the season. We'll talk about that a little bit because racing starts early. The AMA Hard Enduro Series is gonna start as early as April. And I plan to head down for some of it. So yeah, the 300 is going to get stripped. We're going to take the suspension off. I got a new suspension guy, I think, that's going to take a look at both front and back. Again, it's the RR, so it's got all the sacks. Oh, sorry, probably had something in the way there. It's got all the sack stuff on it. I think that's how you pronounce it. So no KYB on this bike. Open cartridge on the front, and on the back, the sacks, regular RR shock. Both have been worked over by Stadium Suspension, but there's a new guy in town, and when I say in town, I mean in Eastern Canada, that is working on beta stuff. So pretty happy to have him take a look at my suspension. It needs a refresh. It needs an upgrade. I need to confirm springs. I think it might be a bit too soft. I had a lot of kicking in the rear end last year, and I can never really figure it out. So this guy's worked with beta a lot. He's worked with a bunch of professional teams, which is not very common for the sack stuff specifically. So we'll see what he does, and we'll see how it works out. Okay, so one of the first things we're going to do here is we're going to take some measurements on the rear shock. So, hey, listen, what I would say is right off the bat, I didn't have my sag set properly pretty much this whole season. So big mistake. It really is a big mistake because I set it towards the end of the season and noticed a difference immediately. There's a lot of talk on the forums about the betas having a little bit less suspension travel than some of the other bikes. And then of course you get into, you know, the 1/3 rule as far as sag and all that stuff is concerned. Listen, I think if you stick to fairly close to regular enduro numbers, you're going to be pretty good to go. So what I want to do is I want to try and get my static sag here at around 35 millimeters. And then I want to get my rider sag somewhere in vicinity of 105. Again, you know, it's not an exact science, but I think if it was around, you know, 105, that would be good. Now, I'm not actually going to ride the bike. I'm taking these measurements right now so that I can provide them to the suspension guy so he can make sure that I'm running the right spring on the back. So that's the only reason why I'm confirming measurements right now. I'm going to pull this thing apart, but I want to be able to tell him if I'm remotely in the ballpark as far as the spring is concerned, because that was one thing I've not done on this bike. I'm about 185 pounds, no gear. With gear on, probably, oh geez, you know, it's got to be 200. And I am going to weigh myself in all my gear today as well, because that's another measurement that he wants. I do have one of these sag checkers. Okay, so there we go. So I marked it with a Sharpie. I got one of these sag checkers, sag checker tools. Fits right in the axle. I'll go right up to this mark at full extension, put it right at 0. Now, I am not a pro when it comes to this stuff. Watched a lot of videos. But basically, all the videos I've seen tell you to kind of give it a bit of a hit, just kind of let it go down, let it settle a few times, and take this measurement, you know, once, twice, 3 times, just to make sure that you are, you know, taking a good average measurement. So I am right at, like, that dash is right in the middle of 34 and 36. I don't think you could get closer to 35 millimeters than how it's set right now. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to verify as much as we can, because I'm by myself, racer sag with me on the bike. Hey, first things first, before we jump on the bike and take some measurements, I just wanted to show off some of this SC race gear. So I haven't done this too often. Of course, there's my new Liat boots, which I absolutely love, and they're super creaky. But this SC race gear is a Canadian company, SC Racewear, I believe it's called. So I got this as a bit of a present from some friends, and I really like it. It fits really well. It is really light. It reminds me a lot of the FXR builds, which for those of you who have worn FXR stuff before, especially the pants, you'll know that they stretch in the right spot, they breathe in the right spot. They're just an amazing pant, better than most of the other stuff that's out there. But this stuff is really nice. I don't do much of the high flow yellow or the high vis coloring on a lot of my gear, but this is the one I chose, and I really like it. I think it really pops. I love the little Canada flags everywhere. Bit of an artistic thing going on with all of the different splashes of black and shades of gray and white. But I really like it, so check them out. And SC Racewear, yeah, check them out. Canadian company, prices seem okay. They do gloves, they do jerseys, they do pants, and they do some pretty cool stuff. Okay, so what I've done is I actually have the sag measurement stick attached up with a bungee cord so that it holds position right where I need it. All right, so you see it drop. Okay, so it's measuring the sag. It's holding it pretty good up against the side of the bike right here. And you just got to kind of play with it. But you can see after I get it set, it's landing right back in the same spot. So I'm going to climb on the bike from here. Try not to kick the stick as I swing my leg over. And then I have something on the front just to stabilize me so I can get in a few different positions. And what I do is I film it. So behind the GoPro right now is my actual phone. And it's filming, and it allows me to zoom in, and I can check and see what type of measurements it is that I'm getting. So now I know that there's lots of different trains of thought out there as far as standing or sitting for sag. My opinion is, and all of my research has led me to see, that as long as your weight is over the foot pegs, you're going to get a fairly accurate measurement. Now I like to do it sitting and standing. So right now I'm sitting forward, and I'm sitting directly in line with my foot pegs. Okay, so that's where and I'm just gonna, I bounce up and down a little bit. I let it readjust. You can see here that my stick moves a bit, but I can check it. That's not a big deal. So right there is all my weight right over the foot pegs. My stick's been, or my measuring stick has been readjusted so it's close to my black line. And that should give me a fairly good measurement. Now I'm going to do that a couple more times. I consistently check this. There we go. Okay. But that's all my weight on the balls of my feet. I'll readjust a little bit. And that's all my weight. Okay, so you can see it moves around a little bit. But I mean, that's about it. So then I'll check my footage. Trying to get off in between the camera and the bike here. And then I'll check my footage and see where I'm at. Just as an update, this Liat 9.5 carbon helmet, the bomb. Absolutely the bomb. I don't have a lot of different experience with a lot of different helmets. I've run through the Fox line, pretty much every single helmet in their line, including the 2021 V3. Yeah. So the 2021 V3, no comparison. There's no comparison. This thing is so comfortable, and it's so light. After some of the long enduro races, my neck was starting to get sore, and I was starting to feel it down all through my traps and my back. Yeah, it's a bit of old age. Yeah, it's a little bit of fitness. But in all honesty, I probably corrected 85% of the issue by going with a high quality, lightweight helmet. And I absolutely love it. So just a quick tip, or not even a tip. I watch calling things tips when I'm the one who's giving the advice. But what I did is I'm fully kitted. So I have everything on. I have my waist pack on. It's got a toolkit in it. I've got my Camelback on. No, it doesn't have water in it, but what it does have is it has a 6-pound weight that I put in the backpack. I had my helmet on. I had my knee braces on. My boots, obviously. I had my helmet on. I had gloves on. I didn't have goggles on. That was about the only thing. So actually, before I take all this off, I'm going to go get my weight. But you want to be fully kitted when you're doing this. You also want to know what type of riding it is that you plan to do. So my 300 is going to be my enduro bike. It's going to be a hard enduro bike. I want it plush, but it also carries a lot of weight. The bike has a lot of armor. I wear a lot of gear, and it's not like in an XC race. I won't have my toolkit and I won't have my waist pack on typically. But in an enduro or a hard enduro race, I will. And I'll be carrying maybe extra water, gels and things to eat, like think the corduroy enduro, that type of stuff. So that's how I want all my measurements to come across for this bike. Now, my XC bike, question mark, we'll see what that is in a little bit. That bike, when I do all the measurements on that bike, I'm going to be lightweight. 2 liters of water, no toolkit. So just, it's a little bit of a different setup. And I think it's important because last year I didn't pay attention enough to setup. And I certainly didn't pay attention enough to sag settings, suspension. I was using the same settings for, fast 3rd, 4th gear XC racing, the exact same settings for the Tennessee TKA knockout. It's not going to work. It doesn't work. You end up beating yourself up. It's not good on either one. It hasn't been optimized for the type of riding you're trying to do with the bike. So anyway, this year, a little bit different. Should have 2 bikes set up for 2 different types of riding, which I'm super pumped about, but this thing still needs some work on the suspension. All right, so the 300 is on a stock rear spring with a stadium suspension worked over rear shock. I just took the racer sag settings. You all saw that. I'm about 102, 104 with a 35 to 36-ish millimeter static sag. But I'm right around 102 to 104 millimeters of race sag, fully geared up for enduro racing. So that's what I'm going to send off to the guy. We're going to see what he says about that. I think the spring's probably good. I talked to him on the phone for almost 2 hours, so there's a lot to go over. I'm not going to go over it all right now. Let's see what he does first. But needless to say, I think he's already identified a few things that might be going on. So anyway, I'm going to give it to him. We're going to see where this goes. But that, 185 pounds without any gear on, stock spring, worked over suspension. So it's been worked on by somebody, which is good. But 35 to 36 millimeters of sag puts me at 102, 104 millimeter race sag. So just in case you were wondering, I don't know if you were, but just in case you were wondering, that's where I sit. Hey, just quickly before my GoPro dies, 185 no gear, 215.4 with gear. So that's how much weight I put on for my enduro setup. Just so you know, just in case you were wondering, that's with all my soft armor and everything on. Again, fully kitted up. All right, hey, night 2 in the shop. Anyway, it's December, so here in Ontario, it's a good time to get the bikes ready for the next season. I've already talked about the suspension yesterday. Laid my table out here because we're gonna strip this thing pretty good, I think. We'll get the suspension off of it. We're gonna take a look at it, like I said yesterday, but I think we're also gonna do a top end. We may actually even crack the cases and redo the main bearing and stuff like that. So we'll see where it goes, but stick with the video. If anything kind of comes up that's noteworthy, I'll go over it. But yeah, other than that, it's just gonna be a bit of a vlog on getting the bike ready for next year. All right, so we're just getting into the bike here, taking apart the front end. Okay, so trying to lay everything out. I have all new bodywork and everything for it too, so we'll see. But I just wanted to show you this little trick. Most of you probably know about this. That's my OFTR badge or sticker from last year. My new one is already here, so I'll replace it. But this was shown to me by a friend because here, if you have more than one bike, having a sticker for every bike, well, you don't get those when you get your membership. You only get one. But I just took a water bottle. This is a smart water bottle. Slid it down the one side, cut it to fit, and I put my club stickers on it just like that, and I put it around my fork tube at the top. One zap strap, around it to hold it on. I can switch it between different bikes, and I don't have to worry about not having my stickers on me. So I thought that was a pretty cool little trick. So here's something else I do, and this is what I do. So it's not that I'm recommending this, but for those of you that don't know, Beta tends to be pretty aggressive with their tightening torques. That says 12 Newton meters. And then up top, that says 17 Newton meters. Now, the top clamps are a little less important, although I typically set my torque wrench to about 15, maybe 15 and a half Newton meters. And for the middle clamps, I actually set mine to 9 Newton meters. So actually less than 10, and I tighten them up that way. I think it makes a difference. Knock on wood, the last time I took my forks off and had them apart, I've had them apart a couple of times now within about 100 and, I don't know, let's call it 170, 180 hours. My hour meter crapped out on me this year for a little bit, but my coatings were still good. And I have a feeling that was because I kept my middle clamps, my lower clamps here, a bit looser. And I think what that does is it doesn't clamp down so much on the tube, and it frees everything up inside. And I haven't noticed any binding either. So anyway, just that's something I do. You know, I would recommend it specifically for the middle clamps. Top clamps, again, not as important, but I also think 17 Newton meters is quite a bit. I've never, ever, ever had an issue. TKO, Tough Like Roar, doesn't matter where I'm riding, at 15 and 9. They've never moved. There's never been an issue. So take it for what it is. All right, so check this out as well. For those of you who want to get suspension work done, you know, or you're going to go race somewhere where you're not going to bring your bike and you're going to be on a rental bike. So this is a Pelican case model IM 3200, the storm case. So it's, you know, it's waterproof, weatherproof. I've used it before. Make sure you get the foam and these little foam blocks, they actually just pull out. You don't even need a knife for these. You just pull them out in blocks, and yeah, you can ship off all your stuff, and it's nice and safe, and you don't have to worry about wrapping it in bubble wrap. So again, great case. It's the perfect size for these forks anyway, and for the shock and everything, it all fits in there, no problem. I've already shipped once with this, and this is how it's going to go out again. All right, so here's another couple of things. So hand guards. All right, we all have our preference for hand guards. Mine, well used. They've been through the ringer. They've been bent a few times, heated up and bent to fit again. I'm not easy on my bike, mostly because I'm not very good on it. But listen, these are Zeta, however you pronounce it, handguards. Same with the actual wraparounds here. There's two versions of the actual plastic handguard. There's these ones, which are the XC models, and then there's the other ones that you can get that have the built-in turn signals. The other ones are absolutely garbage. Okay, so they're more angular. They look almost more rectangular, the other ones, and they have a crease line. Trust me, when you see them, there's a hard crease line that almost lines up with the top of this bar. You could almost follow it all the way through. I had multiple pairs snap off along that crease line, the whole top, as if somebody took a knife or like a hot knife and just cut right through here and peeled that top part right off. I got tired of it. So I was not going to buy. I wasn't even going to replace them. I was going to buy other ones. And I saw these ones were on sale. They're the same price. They have a little removable brake master cylinder piece there. Two little screws. But I put these on and haven't had an issue whatsoever. So that's what they look like. I might have mixed that up when I was just... So Zeta X3s versus the Zeta XCs, I believe. Okay, but you'll know them when you see them. They're different. These ones are much, much, much better. Way better. The other thing on the Betas, if you're buying one of these bikes, this black cover on top of the tank, I didn't run this for... Oh, I haven't run it at all. I basically took it off after having the bike for a few hours. The mode switch, sun rain mode switch, when they come from the factory, is actually in this little holder, and it's right here. Here's the issue with it. To take your tank off after you undo all the other disconnects, that is now connected to your tank guard, or this cover here, which then you have to unclip that wire as well. You got to clip it back in. I got rid of it all right? So I was actually going to cut this holder out. I didn't use this black cover for the longest time. As far as I'm concerned, it's aesthetic. It does have this little trench here to catch fuel, and then there's a line that goes down right here, a plastic line that goes all the way down, so anything that spills in here will go down that line and won't get all over your bike. Okay, got it. Not really all that concerning for me. But the biggest thing I did is I just relocated my switch. And whether it's up here or whether you get it put on your bars, I would recommend getting it off the tank, especially if you're racing. I mean, if you're trail riding, it's one thing, but I absolutely have had to come out very, very quickly and rip my tank off for something. The last thing I want to be doing is fiddling with an additional connector under there. Get the tank off, get your work done, and get on with it. So just another little piece of advice. All right, night 2 or 3 on the bike, getting it ready. We're starting to plan for the next season already, so a couple of GNCCs coming up at February, but we're already January 1st, so it's going to come quick. So we got to get the bikes ready. So there it is now. Okay, I'm going to work on getting the swing arm off, linkage, and the rear shock. All right, so swing arm's off, linkage is off. Rear shock is out. Here it is. Quick little wipe down. I'll make sure they're nice and clean. Always clean your stuff before you send it out to a suspension guy, please. It's not really their job to clean those up for you. So make sure that they're nice and clean before they get to work. So, mistake. This skid plate with the pipe guard, I forgot to take it off. And so now I'm going to have to find a way to slide it out while the bike basically has no wheels or anything. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and loosen this strap here and kind of wiggle it out from underneath. If it was a regular skid plate, it wouldn't be that hard, but the way it hugs the pipe right here just makes it a little bit more difficult to work with. So we'll see how this goes. Well, I guess that worked. You got little ones, make sure you're strapping it down. Kids like to touch everything. Oh. All right, so hey, the debate lives on. It lives on with the guys I ride with. Metal or plastic skid plates. At the end of the day, one is probably better than the other. I personally feel like the metal skid plate, especially these beefy ones like the P-Tech, or some of the other companies that are making them out of some pretty thick aluminum. To me, they protect better than any of the plastic skid plates on the market, no matter what compound they're made out of. But again, it's a bit of a debate. What I don't think is up for debate is mounting them and putting a little bit more time and effort into your bike. So yeah, you can grab it, you can mount it up, frame directly onto the skid plate and hope that works. Most people I ride with have some pretty dinged up frames. My frame is good to go. Okay, so none of the tube is damaged except for some paint. Hey Rob, ride harder, whatever. But this bike with a mediocre rider has participated in races around Ontario, Quebec, the US. It rides the gnarliest stuff in Ontario quite regularly. And listen, like I don't know if I don't know if you can argue with the results. So, but I do a few things. I didn't just get my P-Tech skid plate and throw it on. I always do little things with my bike. Under my frame guards, I always put Gorilla Tape, or I put something there. Anywhere where there is like rubbing or where I'm going to install something, I always take a second glance. I always take a second look. I even put covers, little rubber pieces around my composite frame because it was starting to wear from my boots. And I've seen the betas wear right through because they don't have bodywork that covers this part. And nobody's making a frame guard that actually goes up here for some odd reason. I don't know. Somebody get on that. But when it comes to my skid plate, you see that foam? It's like a weather stripping. Like, it is thick. And it's not like a memory foam, but I'm pushing down on that. It's popping right back up. Now, obviously, it's dented all the way through here. But look at that. Like, it hasn't worn through to the metal. And when it does, I replace it. And I do this often. I don't take my skid plate off a whole lot because I found a way to do oil changes with this contraption I made that screws into the old drain plug and has a little hose that comes out, so I don't have to take my skid plate off to do oil changes. But I removed this, you know, a few times throughout the summer, and when I do, I check my mounting points. As a matter of fact, the aluminum you can see has actually been bent in around the frame a little bit here and there, and I've actually taken a hammer to this and widened this piece out. I've popped areas out a little bit. You can see where I've dinged all this up with a hammer, just trying to get the rounded nature so it fits the pipe again. But like, you gotta use a little bit of common sense. I mean, this is your baby, you know what I mean? And we're so hard on these things, any little thing you can do. So a little bit of Gorilla Tape between frames and you know, installing certain pieces, little things like that will go an awfully long way. So anyway, that's my piece on it. That's just regular weather stripping, pretty thick stuff. You can probably find it at any hardware store, but you know, it's way better than the stuff that came with the plate, that's for sure. And I think plastic or metal, no matter what you're installing, if you're not putting, you know, a little bit more TLC into the installation, it's not going to make a difference. Because like I said, metal or plastic, the guys I ride with, their bikes look, some of the bikes look pretty bad on the frame underneath. So just, anyway, another little recommendation from myself. Still at it here in the garage, just trying to get a little bit of space in here. The UTV with the plow, I got my table, that's where everything is set up. And then I wanted to make some space to actually be able to work on the bike. So just space so I could walk around. Engine's out. Engine is at the dealership. Suspension has been sent out to TNT Suspension. Ken McCurdy, he's helping set up the Beta Canada Racing development team this year. So pretty pumped to see what that comes back as. He's got a lot of mods he can do to it. So we'll see exactly what we're going to do once he receives it. I'll give him a call and we'll have a quick chat. Really, other than that, we're well on our way here. I certainly do not do this enough. So in between cleaning the garage and degreasing the frame on the 300, I figured I'd hop up here and do some static balance practice. I'd like to get much better at this year. I would really like to eventually be able to do this on the big bike and see how that translates into riding technical trails. I am positive it cannot hurt. All right, so I just got a bit of degreaser out. I'm not gonna like go crazy on the frame here, but what I wanted to do was clean it up as best I could. There's a few spots that tend to get very greasy and collect, and then there's a few spots like this, back on the swing arm, right here, another spot right there. These are all spots that there's been some sort of rubbing. So this one right here is from the exhaust pipe. Those of you with betas will understand that one. So yeah, I just wanted to clean it up. I got the engine out, so why not? So I've sprayed it all down with degreaser, and yeah, I'm just gonna wipe it down. I use spray nine, in all honesty. I also use spray nine on other things like my boots. I have the Johnny Walker edition Liat 5.5 boots, and they have a lot of white on them. And I know a lot of people will tell you not to use spray nine, but I haven't had a set of boots last long enough to really worry about what I'm cleaning them with. So these ones are doing okay, but I have a feeling I'm gonna go through them pretty quick as well. So I prefer to just have them looking real good. And I think by the time any cleaner would do any sort of significant damage to any leather or any of the materials on it, the boot is gonna be ready to be replaced anyway. So I'm not gonna worry about it. But yeah, this is something I've wanted to do for a very long time. So I've only had the bike, but I've had other bikes. I've never really stripped the bike down. So this is something that I think, you know, there's a lot of satisfaction out of having, you know, your bike that has treated you well for a long time, and this one's been through the ringer, to really go through it, clean it, get all the grime out of all the hard to reach areas while it's together, and get it put back together and have it feeling and looking fresh. So, you know, it's not a new bike, but you can really get a sense of accomplishment by doing this type of stuff. So yeah, it doesn't take long, and like I said, the engine's out anyway. So and actually, having pulled the engine now, I'm not necessarily convinced that it's not easier to pull the engine to do a lot of the type of work you're going to do on it. I didn't find it that bad whatsoever, and honestly, the beta service manual really does a good job of telling you how to do it, so I would highly recommend it. Anyway, that's it for now. We'll get this cleaned up, and hopefully you keep following along.